You're listening now to the Real Estate Lab with Bayut. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the 17th episode of the Real Estate Labs with Bayut.com. I hope everyone had a fantastic summer and is all geared up for the back end of the year. Today we are joined by the Commercial Director of Chestertons MENA, who is a world-renowned brand, and today we're going to be discussing everything commercial related. Andrew, how are you?
Good morning, Chris. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks for coming in.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me in.
It's good to see you. Last time I seen you was quite a while ago. How have things been at Chestertons?
I think you met me when we were just setting up the account about 2 years ago, and I can honestly say in those days we probably had about 10 staff in agency. We are now just about to get to about 60 agents.
Wow.
We've got an off-plan department, residential department, and then the commercial department. My side of the business at the moment, we're on 14 agents. We have 2 more starting next month, so we'll be on 16, which is where we're going to probably hold for the next couple of months, and then maybe after Christmas grow it a little bit further.
Obviously, the real estate market as a whole in Dubai has been very active over the past couple of years, and a lot of what you hear in the market is mainly focused around the residential stuff, and that's why we really want to touch on what's happening in the commercial aspect, because it's a really important aspect of the country.
It drives the city, really. Without commercial, you're not going to have a city. We all need to work somewhere. We all need to make our living somewhere, and not everybody that arrives in Dubai is a multi-millionaire that's going to buy a big house on the Palm and not need to work in Dubai.
Can we maybe just, before we go into the questions which we've got here, can we get an understanding of how the last 2 years for the commercial segment has been in Dubai?
So I'll give you a slightly longer snapshot, which will probably be an easier one. We had a massive oversupply of commercial space, sort of 2011, 12, 13.
Okay.
We never really fulfilled that commercial space right up until 2021. And a lot of that was oversupply. Obviously, the city has boomed post COVID. If you look at how many people regionally have moved to Dubai, how many companies regionally have moved to Dubai, that has given us a position that we are actually, and I can honestly say I've been in the market since 2005. This is probably the busiest commercial market we've had since sort of 2008. The amount of companies moving to Dubai. The other thing is you've had a huge amount of residential developed since 2012. So that 12 years of residential that's been developed, nobody's actually built any commercial. So we're now in a position that we don't actually have any new developments under sort of construction, and we are probably running around 95% occupancy. Wow. If you look at most cities of commercial real estate today, they're probably struggling at 60, 70%. You look at Dubai, we're probably in the 90s, we are in the 90s, and I think we're also in that position that commercial has a lot of legs left in it. The residential markets continue to develop. We've built all these new communities. People are moving to Dubai, and the old slogan of Dubai was build it and they will come. Well, they've definitely come. Unfortunately, they haven't kept up with the building of commercial.
Yeah, because it's mainly been focused around the residential, and I suppose when you start looking at occupancy rates sitting at maybe 95%, it probably drives the prices up quite high, which is really going to put pressure on young entrepreneurs trying to set up businesses, which is something which the city and the government are really trying to encourage. But with certain rules and regulations in place, it can become quite difficult.
It is a difficult one, and it's a balanced one of what do you need, and do you build too much commercial again and we sit in oversupply, which makes investors not interested in the market. And that's where we have been. We're now in this position where we have a shortage of commercial space. Developers are also a little bit unsure. Do we develop another couple of buildings? Do we build another business park? What do we build and how much do we build? And the other thing, a lot of these residential developers, they know they can build a quick residential development, they can sell it off, and they've got no ties to that building anymore. Commercial, you typically find you build the building, you would lease it out as a single title landlord. If you go down the freehold market, you obviously sell it off at the beginning. So it is one of those things of, we get a higher return in residential, it's a quicker sale, there's more people looking to buy residential. A lot of people get scared of commercial. At the end of the day, they don't understand it. They don't know why they would buy commercial. Commercial gives you a higher rental income. It gives you a more sustainable income because tenants will sign a 5-year lease. They will sign a 3-year lease. They'll take a space like this, fit it out, spend whatever they spend, 3, 4, 500 dirhams a square foot. They've invested in that property. They're not going to go anywhere in a hurry. And that is sort of peace of mind for the investor. So commercial is, as an investor, and I own quite a few commercial properties in Dubai, the returns and the ease of management, a lot of tenants happy to pay one check. You're not chasing bounce checks. It's just an easier proposition.
Can you give us a current overview of what the commercial real estate market looks like at the moment, and maybe give us an idea of what is that investor interested in?
At the moment, the investors that we see through the door, and we're definitely getting a lot more investors looking to buy commercial real estate. We do get quite a lot of end users, but I think in the last sort of 6 months to 8 months, we're starting to see investors come back into the market who are saying, I will buy a tenanted asset. I'm looking at transactions at the moment, we're sort of trying to put one together where the buyers are looking at a tenant that is sort of sat there for another 3 years. They're not looking to kick the tenant out. They're basically looking at the return that they can get on that. And this is where we're starting to see a lot of investors now starting to look back at commercial. In the early days, 2021, 2022, a lot of people were buying commercial thinking there's a good opportunity here, there's going to grow, there's a shortage of commercial, prices will go up, we're going to get good growth out of this. And then the market moved into end users. We're now moving back a bit where investors are coming to the market saying, I want to buy a tenanted asset. I want to buy something that's rented out. If the tenant moves out, I know I can put the rents out. I'm getting a good return on this. And especially the ones that have got 3, 4, 5-year leases on them. And if it's a global or a blue chip company that's taken that space, they're quite happy to invest that money at the moment.
Would you say it's competitive in terms of maybe price per square foot? Or?
I think if you look at commercial versus residential, commercial is undervalued at the moment.
Okay.
I think the supply of commercial is going to drive the prices higher. I think the rents are going to continue to climb for the next, I sort of feel the next 2 or 3 years. And if that continues to happen, commercial is going to be a lot more attractive. I think if you look at the retail market as well, I mean, we're getting retails now coming out in these new communities. And honestly, they literally sit on the shelf, as I say, or in the market for 2-3 weeks, and we've rented them out or we've sold them.
Let's focus on the word commercial for a second, and just for most people will probably connect that with an office. Yeah. What different parts of real estate fall under the word commercial?
Different people you speak to will give you different ideas. I mean, I look at my commercial team and we focus primarily on office space, retail space, industrial. So industrial can then be broken down into buy and staff accommodation, warehousing. You then have land. You then have retail, showrooms, commercial villas. So there's sort of 6 assets really that sit in there. And in commercial, you can look at any of those. So the drivers of the economy basically all fall under commercial real estate. The argument one is hotel apartments. People say that should be a commercial transaction. Some people say it's a residential transaction. I don't get involved in those discussions. I've got enough to take care of than worry whether a residential apartment or a hotel apartment falls as a commercial transaction.
Andrew, let's touch on land. Obviously, there's a lot of demand at this moment in time, and you're demanding personally that more commercial be built. From a land perspective, where are you seeing interest in terms of developers looking?
I think as the land prices have gone up over the last 3 or 4 years, we're starting to see developers looking at secondary locations. If you look in the city limits of Dubai, and when I say the city limits, I sort of look at Al Khail Road as my city limit. And once you sort of look at what land is actually available there, you're starting to see less and less plots. You look in Business Bay, most of the plots nowadays are under construction. You look at communities like Barsha Heights, it's built. You look at Dubai Marina, I think the last 1 or 2 plots have just been sold again. So I sort of anticipate somebody's going to start building on those. So people are being pushed out to sort of, I want to say secondary locations, maybe call it newer Dubai. People are looking in Arjan, people are looking in Marjan, people are looking at plots around the global village area because there's still quite a lot of untapped land out there. So there is developers looking at that. Meydan was a huge development where a lot of land got sold off, but if you look at the development that's happened in Meydan, I mean, every single plot you go past is under construction at the moment. People are starting to look further out of the city. People are also starting to look at where new projects are being launched. Metro Lines is one of them. Dubai South Airport. That's created a huge amount of new land development there. Emaar has launched 2 big projects out there. I think the Max launched a new project out there. And then the plots that are in Dubai South have also created quite a lot of demand since the new airport was announced. The other thing that we're seeing, there's a development called Jebel Ali Hills, which is just the other side of where Dubai Parks is, Legoland and all of that. There's a community there called Jebel Ali Hills. And I think last month alone, there was 36 plots transacted there. And these are end users buying a plot of land to build a villa, whether it's for themselves as end use or whether it's something they're building to sell on or rent out. We're not too sure yet, but that's the highest community for land transactions at the moment. And yet you look at that and think it's probably one of the furthest communities from centre Dubai. And people land investors or developers like to get in and buy land very early on when communities are not being talked about, because there's not that interest in the price. Dubai Marina plots or palm plots have skyrocketed over the last 3 or 4 years, and anybody looking to buy that, to build that out, develop it and make a return, because you've got to look at a developer and he's going to buy that piece of land, he's going to go through a design phase, he's going to go through an approval phase of plans. Once he's got to that stage, he's got a developer. So it's a 2-3 year project for him. He's got to be able to see that return and that investment is on that plot of land. And a lot of land we're looking at the moment, and more so on my guys from sort of building consultancy and that, they turn around and they're like, land in the city limits is difficult to squeeze a return out of it. And I think that's maybe why we're starting to see a lot more branded residents. We're starting to see people look at different ways to use the land instead of building a traditional residential building or a commercial building or whatever. Those sort of developers now are having to move further out the city. JVC, if you look at how many cranes are swinging around JVC, I mean, I can't believe how much that community's grown in the last 5 or 6 years. And I think you're going to just see more of that pushing further out into the desert.
Yeah, I think you sort of touched on accessibility with the new metro line there, and then obviously you've got the airport and stuff, terminal. I think that's an important factor which needs to be taken into consideration here. You look at places like Dubai Marina, which you quite rightly mentioned. I think there's maybe the last plots that are getting built at this moment in time. When you look at traffic and accessibility of getting in and out of Dubai Marina, it can be a nightmare at times, and we're seeing people moving more further and further back into the sort of Kudra Road area. But we don't really have the commercial aspect within those communities, or that business part that you mentioned earlier. We don't have that sort of stuff in those areas. You could argue Dubai Hills put a business part there. But we don't really see commercial getting built as quick a rate. So it'd be really interesting to see that. Once they've announced all these projects, are they going to look to start promoting and making them look attractive?
I think it's going to be maybe a private developer that looks at building a business park in one of these areas. And I think if you've got a good piece of land out there with good accessibility, I think you will find developers maybe do look at that. Dubai Hills, honestly, the business park there, as you mentioned, struggled for tenants 3 or 4 years ago, and now we're fighting for space in there. We cannot get enough space in it, and yet it doesn't have a metro accessibility. Although it's on Al Khail Road and it's got Sakim access, it's not a prime location. And I think as a metro line will go down Sakim Road, the prices in that community will go up a lot.
I think the good thing is it does seem as if it's front of mind for government in terms of the plans which they've got in place on Hester Street and etc. So it'll be quite interesting to see what the end product looks like and how easier it makes it.
I always say to people, I was lucky or unlucky, I don't know which it was. I was here in 2000, where half of these communities were literally just camels and desert. We're now looking at 2024 and roads that never existed are now full communities. I mean, Sakim Road, you look at how many communities are off that nowadays, and I think what it will be like in another 25 years or by 2050, and you won't recognize Dubai.
Yeah, it's changing every day, isn't it? You drive down the road and you go, where did that building come from? That wasn't there yesterday. Let's talk about property investors. Just touch on if they're planning an exit strategy, which sort of things should they consider?
It's a difficult one. I think most investors look at properties as a return. They look at the capital growth. Obviously, we've gone through a massive amount of capital growth. Some investors will probably be looking at exiting their investments now, taking that capital growth, going into the banks, maybe releasing equity on those assets to buy further assets. So a lot of people will be doing a lot of interesting things at the moment. I think for me, I invest in commercial real estate. I look at a building. I look at the longevity of a building. How much longer is it going to be active? How much investment does the building need to put in to keep tenants wanting to be in that building? A lot of our commercial buildings were built, like I said at the beginning, 2010, 11, 12. They're coming up for that period where common areas need to be maintained. That investment needs to come in. We have a few buildings that I know the lobbies have been ripped out, the common areas are all being ripped out, they're putting in a whole new sort of common areas. But at what stage does an investor look at this and go, I don't want to be involved in this whole process, because obviously potentially the property is not going to be as valuable while they're doing that renovation, and it's not a quick process to renovate a whole building. Some buildings have actually sort of kicked all the tenants out, completely renovated the building, and are now in the process of re-tenanting. Obviously they've benefited because the rents have gone up so much higher. So there's a whole varying why people would exit an investment. A lot of people try and exit obviously when a building comes to the end of its life, and they don't want to be in that process that they're paying for that renovation.
Okay, Andrew, I am going to give you a series of statements and you have to tell me whether they are true or whether they're false, okay? A lot at stake here. Credibility is on the line.
Are you saying I've got credibility here?
Okay, commercial real estate in Dubai is primarily driven by foreign investors. True or false?
I'm going to say false. Because if you look at who the biggest commercial landlord in Dubai is at the moment, is Dubai government.
Okay.
So I would say false.
Question number 2. Commercial real estate investments usually yield higher returns than residential investments. Yeah?
Yep.
Question number 3. You must pay VAT when purchasing commercial properties.
True.
Okay.
But not in all cases.
But not in all cases. What cases would you?
So there is a minimum threshold that you need to be receiving on rent before you need to register for VAT. Once you receive that, obviously you need to register for VAT, which is $100,000.
Retail spaces are becoming more important to invest than industrial properties in Dubai.
I'm going to go false with that one. And the reason I would go false is we don't actually grow anything in Dubai. We don't actually have any raw product in Dubai. So everything we have is imported, which obviously means warehousing is at a premium.
Yep.
And pretty much everything we consume in Dubai is shipped in, flown in, or arrived through a port. And warehousing is a huge, huge contributor to the commercial real estate market in Dubai.
Okay, interesting. Commercial real estate closing costs are usually lower than those for residential properties in Dubai.
I would say false, because we have exactly the same closing costs. 4% transfer fee in the land department, you still have to pay your trustee fee of 4,000 dirhams and your acknowledgement fee of 580 dirhams. Nothing changes. Agency fees, we might get away with a bit more.
Okay, last question, Andrew. Investing in commercial properties in established communities always guarantees higher returns compared to newer business districts.
I'm going to say I'm on the edge with this one. I'm going to go with true. However, depending on quality of buildings, depending on age of buildings, and the other one is obviously if it's office space, then I would agree with you. Retail space, obviously people are opening new developments on islands on the Palm and stuff like that, it's going to get a higher return purely because of the views. So
perfect.
A yes and a no, so I'll give you both.
Well, Andrew, it's been a pleasure, and as I said, we don't discuss commercial real estate enough in this market or generally in podcasts which are here around the city. So it's good to hear your expertise, your point of view on things, and hopefully people at home have taken something away, and possibly maybe even look into investing into commercial real estate now.
I'm sure lots of people look at commercial real estate. It's a hot topic at the moment in the press. It's a hot topic on a lot of podcasts, because I've been on probably 4 or 5 lately.
Wow.
And more to the point, I think the lack of office space is driving people to look at what they should be investing their money in, and the returns is definitely definitely something that they prefer.
Well, there you go, you heard it from the man himself. If you are interested in commercial real estate, you have any questions with regards to commercial real estate, you're an entrepreneur, you're overseas, you're looking to move here, you have any questions at all about maybe even setting up a business and what the costs would be, Andrew or one of his team members would be more than happy to help you. Thanks for tuning in again to another episode of the Real Estate Labs with Bayut. And Andrew, thank you very much for joining.
Thank you for inviting me in.
You're listening now to the Real Estate Lab with Bayut.